Queen Elizabeth National Park in western Uganda is a natural masterpiece that exudes an air of grandeur and regality. It's an unquestionable cornucopia of diversity, where over 500 bird species and over 90 mammal species call it home. The 1,229 square mile landscape is Uganda's top tourist hotspot, where many flock to watch tree-climbing lions, African buffaloes, and chimpanzees, as well as the elusive leopards, among others, which roam the sprawling savanna. The park rangers here are the unsung heroes of this wilderness, where they work tirelessly to safeguard the wildlife from illegal poaching. Dorene Ayera was one of the many rangers at the Queen Elizabeth National Park, dedicated to protecting and preserving the park's wildlife. Like her colleagues, the park had given her a place to live on the grounds near the Maiwea Safari Lodge. As the first rays of sunlight broke over the horizon on Friday the 4th of May, 2018, Dorene slowly stirred from her slumber. She sat up and stretched her arms while taking in a deep breath of the crisp morning air. She glanced out the window and took in the majesty of the park, a place she had come to know, love, and call home. Every day here meant a new adventure, a chance to explore the vastness of the park. And despite the fact that her job came with a lot of risks, she always looked forward to what nature had in store for her. After breakfast, Dorene put on her sturdy hiking boots and laced them tightly, and then strapped on her leather utility belt. As she made her way towards the door, the giggles of her 3-year-old boy, Elisha Nabugyere, reminded her that she had forgotten to bid him goodbye. It was a bittersweet moment as she bent and gave him a warm embrace. With a heavy heart, Dorene stepped out, knowing that her nanny was well equipped to care for Elisha while she was away. Leaving the toddler behind every day was a struggle, but she understood that there was no other way of providing for her family. Unfortunately, she had no idea that this would be the last time she would see him. As the day progressed, the nanny and the toddler went on with their usual merrymaking. They ate, drank, and danced to the gentle tunes that the nanny hummed. Elisha took his afternoon nap, and when he got up, he and the nanny were back to being lively again. The house was all about giggles. They had so much fun that they didn't notice the hours rush by. Dorene was still at work, counting the minutes till her shift was over so that she could go home to see her son. As the sun was setting in the evening, her nanny decided to prepare stew for dinner. Her job required her to ensure that tired Dorene would arrive home to a hot meal. The kitchen was outdoors and separate from the main house, prompting her to leave the toddler inside the main house. He wasn't going to be in there too long. The bubbling sounds of the stew filled the kitchen air as she leaned over to stir the contents of the pot. Suddenly, the bubbling sounds of the stew were overshadowed by a screeching scream somewhere outside the kitchen. With the stirring spoon still in her hand, the nanny quickly dashed outside, only to see a large dark figure dragging the young Elisha across the compound. The young toddler had gotten lonely and bored in the house and had wandered away from the main house, following the nanny to the outdoor kitchen. Unfortunately, the nanny was neither aware that the toddler was a few steps behind her, nor aware of a hungry leopard that was lurking in the shadows around the unfenced staff quarters. Unlike the other big cats, leopards do not chase their prey, but rather use the stalk and ambush technique to hunt. They try to get as close as possible to their target before launching a brief and explosive charge, which can be as fast as 60 kilometers per hour, after which they make a bite to the neck, eventually crushing the windpipe and suffocating the victim to death. This leopard had stalked the lone toddler as he was headed to the kitchen before noiselessly launching its attack. The nanny tried to intervene, chasing after the screaming Elisha and the leopard, but it was too late. The beast had calculated its moves and was too fast for her. The elusive leopard tightened its grip on the toddler's neck and carried him like a rag doll deeper into the darkness of the park. On average, a leopard's bite force is between 300 and 310 pounds per square inch. This, together with its sharp, powerful teeth and neck, is capable of pulling over 275 pounds of carcasses up trees, made the toddler's 31 pounds a walk in the park for the elusive leopard. The sounds of its growls echoed through the staff quarters as Elisha's screams eventually faded into a haunting silence, leaving nothing but the wails of the nanny and the sound of the leopard's triumphant snarls as it retreated back into the wild. The commotion had attracted the other staff members, who on hearing the ordeal were left in utter shock. It was too late for them to help, and never once had they thought they would live to witness such a tragic incident. They had always thought that they were safe within the staff quarters, guarded by rangers day and night. But on that fateful night, the true state of their security lay open before them. The mood of that Friday's early night changed as the feelings of horror and despair hung in the air. The nanny didn't know the right words to tell Elisha's mother, Dorene, on her return from her shift. The available staff promptly volunteered, and a search for both the leopard and Elisha was mounted. The search party set out in the dark of the night, their hearts heavy with the weight of uncertainty. They combed the park, following the route the leopard had dashed towards. They searched through the undergrowth of the savanna and called out Elisha's name with hopes of a response. But the only sounds that echoed back to them were the rustling of leaves, the hooting of owls, and the distant growls of other nocturnal animals. As the hours passed and the night wore on, they grew more and more anxious, fearing the worst had already occurred. And then, the following day on Saturday, they found exactly what they had been terrified of. In a clearing nestled under a tree, they found the remains of Elisha. His bones and skull lay scattered on the ground, the testimony of the only remnants of a life brutally cut short. The faces of the search party contorted with sadness and disbelief as a mixture of grief and horror struck their hearts. They could not fathom the pain and terror that the toddler had endured during his final moments. Like a somber procession of mourners, they stood in silence and paid their final respects to Elisha before collecting his remains and slowly making their way back to the staff quarters. Elisha's father, Francis Manana Nabugyere, laid the remains of his son to rest in a coffin. He was deeply devastated by the horrific turn of events and urged the Uganda Wildlife Authority to erect more measures to protect the staff and their kin. News of the incident shocked many in Uganda, where leopard attacks on humans are rare. The idyllic beauty and graceful nature of the elusive leopard had once again been badly tainted and marred by the memory of Elisha's tragic final affliction.